almost immediately, my worries dissipated. It was the most rewarding, beautiful trip I've probably ever taken in my life, and one that I really would love to bring my parents, my partner, my closest friends on in the future, to return home, to go back to a place that felt like, oh man, carved a piece of my heart, and met so many wonderful people, ate incredible food, saw beautiful rural landscapes and ancient cities.
I'm going to let you guess what country she's talking about. I promise I'll share the answer before we dive into today's interview, but I thought that might be a fun way to start it out. That's our wonderful guest, Molly McDonald. She's the founder and executive producer at Blue Door Productions. You can learn more about their work at bluedoorproductions.co. She's produced films for record-breaking adventurers like Mitch Hutchcraft, who swam, cycled, and ran his way from the UK to Nepal, and Russ Cook, known as the Hardest Geezer, who recently became the first person ever to run the full length of Africa. Her client list includes Red Bull, National Geographic, BBC, and on and on. Her films on YouTube have gotten over 200 million views, and of course, I wanted to give you a behind-the-scenes look at what it's like to follow these adventures and make these films around the world. We talk about how her Irish roots and her values have impacted her work and her worldview. We get into some destination recommendations, as we always do, because Molly's been to over 60 countries before she hit the age of 30, not just for her work, but on her own, traveling around the world on a budget. And she also has expert advice, of course, on how to break through on YouTube. I couldn't pass up the opportunity to ask her some questions around that. So you're going to get some ideas to help you excel at storytelling, even when the story you're documenting is still being written, is still unfolding in front of you, as has happened with her as she's following these people on these adventures, and you don't really know what's going to happen. You're going to hear some behind the scenes stories from her work there. And loads more. It's all happening right now in this conversation. So buckle up, strap in. Thanks for being here, and welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend.
You're listening to the Zero to Travel podcast, where we explore exciting travel-based work, lifestyle, and business opportunities, helping you to achieve your wildest travel dreams. And now your host, world wanderer and travel junkie, Jason Moore.
Hey, it's Jason here with ZeroToTravel.com. Welcome to the show. Thanks for hanging out, letting me bring a little travel into your ears today. This is the show to help you travel the world on your terms, to fill your life with as much travel as you desire, no matter what your situation or experience. And I have to give you the answer to that little teaser at the top. I'm not going to string you along here. I know this was almost an impossible task because you're picking from many countries around the world, but for some of you, you may or may not be surprised that the answer to that question is Iraq. She was talking about her trip to Iraq, which for her was a pretty big moment growing up in New York City during and through 9/11 and going through the Iraq War and all of those things that you are bombarded with in that time in terms of the media and sort of the perception of what that country may be and what it may hold in store for you. Of course, we know as travelers, getting in on the ground in a place is a lot different than having the media sort of tell us what a place is. And so we get into that. We have a whole conversation around that and plenty more going on in this interview. We also talk about the cruel trick that travel can play on you by making you feel at home in little places around the world. She talks about some of the places that feel at home for her, and on and on. And you're going to love this one. Now, before we dive in quickly, zerototravel.com/newsletters, where you can join the community off the pod. It is free. You can sign up over there for that. And I'll leave you with a Irish proverb at the end of this one to send you on your way and go about your day. Thanks for listening, and please join my conversation with Molly. I'll see you on the other side, my friend. Molly McDonald, welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend. Good to see you.
Yes, you too. Thank you so much for having me.
Slightly jet lagged, still waking up. I appreciate your time.
As per usual. When am I not jet lagged?
all travelers can relate. How do you like traveling for work? I mean, this is your job. You're a YouTube producer. From the email I got, you've been already to over 60 countries by the age of 30, just through, was that all through your work? Here's my first question. Did you fall into this line of work, or did you insert yourself into this line of work?
Actually, I think about this a lot, and I think it was mostly my own doing. I mean, I always knew I needed to find a role that allowed me to travel because from a young age, I was exposed to this sort of the duality of being Irish and American, living in the States, coming back home to family every year, and just loving that contrast. And so, as I got older, teenage years, dreaming about backpacking and all that fun stuff and saving up and working so hard to do it for the 1 or 2 months of each summer. Yeah, I think it was a non-negotiable. I was never going to be someone that was sitting in the same office every day yeah, and in the same place. So a bit of both. I got very lucky with production because it allows you to follow where the story goes. So yeah, it's a pretty good part of the job.
Well, this is interesting to me because I have kids that are dual citizens, and I'm always wondering what that experience is like for somebody who grew up that way, because I didn't grow up that way. So you were, I guess you have an Irish parent and an American parent. Is that how that, yeah, like, where did you grow up and how
Yeah.
often were you going back and forth?
Yeah, actually, my mom and dad are both from Ireland. They moved to the States in the 80s, met each other over there, big American dream, and decided to have a kid. So that's how I came about via a very Irish family. And then I guess also ties into that just growing up in New York City, which is such a global place and full of diversity and multicultural backgrounds. So being fascinated by all the different people that I came across. I think I was also just very lucky to be of an Irish family um that stayed very connected to my Irish culture for two reasons. One being, my dad would work in the summers and ship my mom and I back to my grandparents to really be like immersed in the culture and to play the fiddle and to be, read Irish literature by my grandmother at night. And that was so important to me. But on the other side of the pond, my parents own Irish pubs in New York, and so I was in this satellite Ireland where everyone that came through either the door of the pub or the door of our house seemingly was just off the boat. So it was a really fun environment to be raised in.
Wow. Okay. Was that in Manhattan? Did you grow up in Manhattan?
That was in Manhattan. Yeah,
Okay.
some very great, if I can be so cheeky as to plug, best pint of Guinness that you're going to get in New York City is Swift on 4th Street. That's the first pub my dad ever opened in 1995, going strong 30 years later. And I think one of the other ones that he tends to get recognized for is his design and influence of the Dead Rabbit, which is like voted #1 cocktail bar a few years in a row, and is a very successful sort of franchise now. So yeah, check them out if you're in the city.
Okay. Well, what was it like growing up around? Because there is a special with the pub culture, the traditional Irish music, the trad sessions that happen, all of that sort of stuff, the atmosphere. I just, yeah, I have treasured some of my most treasured travel memories are from Ireland, or even not even in Ireland, but experiencing a taste of that Irish culture in an authentic setting, like in some of the pubs you're describing in another city. It's magical on a lot of levels, and I don't think that's I guess I have a deep love of music, so maybe there's a bit of extra something there. But I mean, growing up around all of that, what was it, what was that like? I mean, the restaurant business is pretty intensive in terms of hours and stuff like that. Like, were
Yes.
you working in these places? How were you? Yeah,
At a
what was
certain
this?
age, yes. Yeah.
Okay,
I
yeah.
mean,
Well,
hence
I know you
hence
weren't like 7 years old running Guinness to the
No, but there are some really interesting photos of me like attached to the bar counter in my kid's chair as my
Oh,
dad's
great, yeah.
bartending. But yeah, hence us spending really such quality time with my grandparents was because my dad was just working his ass off, and very long hours, very intense industry that is at the mercy of the sort of global environment. And I have so much respect for my dad, really, for many reasons, such a hard worker. that classic immigrant mentality, came over to the States with very little and built a real life for himself and for us subsequently. But I think, looking at just in the 30 years that Swift has been open, you had 9/11, you had the financial crash of '08, you had Hurricane Sandy, the pandemic, just to name a few of the things that were thrown at him every few years. And I really think it speaks to immigrant mentality, but of course, a real grit that comes from being Irish. And I should probably mention I did a master's degree at NYU in Irish studies during COVID. Production had stopped. My day job had sort of been put on pause, and I thought, oh God, how can I be productive here? And I decided to study the Irish diaspora, and just fascinating figures about how such a small island, something like 5 million people, can have a huge impact on the world. 70 million Irish passport holders around the world. I think 35 million of them are based in the States. Rough figures, because that's going back a few years now, but like, wow, what a big impact for a small nation. And that does have to do with the tourism, the storytelling, musicality, hospitality, a real philosophy of open your doors to whoever's walking in and start having a conversation. And I think that feeds into the way that I like to travel as well, is just that open-mindedness and that warmth. It's definitely had a big influence on me over the years.
Ireland feels like one of those places where no matter who you are, when you go there, you could feel like everybody could feel at home there. Growing up in both the places and then getting a master's in Irish studies, what do you think most people miss about Ireland or Irish culture? We know the surface level kind of Michael Flatley doing the dance thing and the pubs and all that stuff. But I mean, on a deeper level, what are some of the nuances of Irish culture that you think perhaps deserve more attention, maybe?
Yeah, God, so many things, to be honest. I'm really proud to be Irish, so there's a lot that comes to mind. The humility, sort of unspoken understanding that although it's fantastic to achieve success, you shouldn't necessarily be shouting it from your tower. And with that comes a great sense of humor, even through dark times. As I already touched on, musicality, God, and spoken word. I think 800 years of oppression, and yet a wonderful perseverance and respect for how stories can be told and through what medium they can be told, whether it is, a Seamus Heaney poem or a novel by Colin McCann or a beautiful ballad or a song, in fact, by Lunessa. Fantastic Irish sessions. And do you know what? A pint of Guinness, it's just fantastic, isn't it? Like the experience of sitting, waiting, knowing that it's all good things. Sort of, you got to wait for that to brew, for that to come to the right moment when you can finally have your sip. Or in some cases now, I suppose thanks to TikTok, split the G, which I do feel a bit conflicted about that, but
Well,
yeah.
I'm not familiar with split the G. What's split the G?
Are you not? Oh
No.
God, it's all the kiddos are talking about it. Kim Kardashian did it. Dua Lipa did it. Basically, it's this old pub game that's been, honestly, it's been a thing for decades. I mean, I do remember people sort of splitting the harp when I was younger, on occasion. But now you go into Swift or any great, Guinness pub, and you order it, and you have to get it right between the letter G on the Guinness glass.
Okay.
For me, it's about 3.5 gulps. What I don't like about that is, why rush a beautiful pint of Guinness? Do you know what I mean? You're a quarter of the way through by the time you're done. Just enjoy it, But I mean, I do like the enthusiasm. Yeah, what's the hurry? I do like the enthusiasm that's come with it, and to be honest, it's great for sales, right? Because if you don't get it the first time, you gotta order another one. So,
well, it's just a real world reflection of social media. It's like, let's hurry up, let's get to the next thing.
It's wild. and it's wild that Guinness has become like a more, I guess, a female friendly drink. Typically, when I was growing up, it was the the older man at the pub drinking a Guinness. And now I love seeing a younger generation appreciating it, but a lot of women going for it. It's actually quite a light beer. So yeah, if you haven't had it, try.
Yeah, I wanted to dive into your background a bit because this is going to feed into, I think, how you approach storytelling and what you do at your production company, Blue Door Productions. And I want to hear about some of the on the ground experiences you've had as a YouTube producer. But it's really interesting to me to think about the background you bring to this, because it's a lot of juxtapositions in many ways, right? You're talking about the humility of sort of the iron, that sort of sense of, and I know I work with an Irish guy, and it's exactly like you described. It's just like, always kind of downplaying what he does, and there's a certain thing to it, and it's very charming. And then you have America, which is almost, shouting from the rooftops. Like you said, don't shout from the rooftops. And there it's like, hey, look at me. Look at what I've done. Look at what I've built. That kind of mentality it can be. You growing up and having the immigrant sort of, like you said, the grit, and then also the New York East Coast grit. I grew up on the East Coast in the States. So that's a certain hustle thing there. But then you're balanced with the sort of the European, maybe, less live to work and more the work to live, or whatever the saying is, the reverse of that. And so you have all of these things inside the cocktail that is you, I guess. And then you're bringing all of this to a production, and then your job is to tell a story. Well, let's talk about some of that so people can get an understanding of some of the things you've produced. And by the way, it seems like you've built this company pretty fast. Working in the restaurant, I know I've worked in restaurants. I know how hard it is and all of the hours that your parents worked, and then you have put in those hours as well. I mean, do you think it's a good thing to work so hard and so many hours? How are you feeling about that right now in your life,
Yeah.
like in your journey?
I think if you can find something that you love and make it not seem like work all the time, which I've been lucky to do, and work it, work it for as long as you can. Make hay when the sun shines, as they say. But yeah, I guess I find a lot of similarities between that hospitality business and then production. And as I was coming up in the industry, yeah, the hours are long, they're intense, but I'm trying to build something that hopefully becomes a self-sustaining business one day, where I don't have to be maybe logged on and traveling as much as I do now. I'm looking for balance all the time, and the move to the UK, where I live now, was a big part of that, because there is a bit more respect for personal boundaries, and the fact that you're a real human being outside of the office. I think that, I came up in the industry in a very intense time of production, big sets in New York City, working on Billions and The Marvelous Maisel. And granted, I was sort of just lower end of the production line at that time, but I was looking at my higher ups and going, don't think they have it much better than I do here.
Right.
And as much as I do appreciate hard work, and I am a bit of a workaholic, I can see how down the line that affects family, that affects your life. So I think coming over to YouTube was probably a great move, although experimental at the time, because it's a little bit more normal than big TV. And talking about contrast, what Blue Door very much does is brings in the quality and operations of a TV production, highbrow, as it were, and applies it to this wild west of new media, this sort of culture of ask for forgiveness, not permission, and just run and gun it, grab a camera, see what you can get, and try and, carve a story for the algorithm perhaps later. So yeah, there's a lot of that coming into how we produce.
That's, I'm sure, part of the fun. You kind of don't know. There's a sort of a natural evolution or unpredictability to the art that makes it exciting.
I would say so. Yeah. Yes, exciting, pressured. It's like documentary filmmaking, and that is in part what we do as well. But, when you're making something for YouTube, you might have just a title, and you're just trying to fulfill what your title promised. And so a lot of the time, I'd say at least 50% of the time, I go out with creators and they're not entirely sure where we're going to end up. And that means a production can last a couple of hours, couple of days, couple of weeks, couple of months. But you're there to tell a great story. So you're not necessarily tied to what the deliverables are, or what the algorithm wants, especially on YouTube. It's more so, how can we stand out? How can we share something different? How can we tell a story that, for the sake of the platform, is either, informational, educational, or entertaining?
And this is advice for anybody listening who is aspiring to be on YouTube. That's what is baked into what you do with travel and documenting travel, because it's different than documenting like a talking head video where you just have, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to run through this script. It's like, yeah, it can last a week because you don't know actually who you're going to meet or, if you're going to get pulled over by the cops, or, all the things that can happen while you're traveling. And some of the things, well, let's get into some of the experiences you've had on the ground, because I know you've been creating video content for brands like Red Bull and following these epic challenges and expeditions, specifically Mitch Hutchcraft. I was just looking at his YouTube. He swam, cycled, and ran his way from the UK to Nepal, and I think he climbed Mount Everest then. Is that right?
That's true.
I mean, that's
Yes.
just insane. I imagine you weren't at the peak, the summit of Mount Everest with him with a camera.
Sadly not. And for multiple reasons. I mean, I'm certainly not fit enough to be doing that, but I also broke my leg a few months before his summit climb.
Okay.
Yes,
Wow.
I was supposed to climb up to base camp with him and ended up having to wait until he returned, and flew out to Nepal in a much more mellow trip. So I will be doing that base camp climb at some point, but the summit I cannot guarantee. Mitch is a fascinating character, and what a project to work on. It was so fantastic.
We'll get back to the interview in just a moment. I really enjoy the planning stage of a trip, piecing together that itinerary that sets you up for this epic travel experience. You probably already know that travel advisors actually earn a living planning trips for others doing that exact thing, but what you might not know is how easy it is for you to take your travel planning skills and earn income from them by planning vacations for others with Fora. Fora is a modern travel agency built for people who love to plan travel and help others travel well. Their tech platform, training, and community give you everything you need to turn your passion for travel planning into a flexible, meaningful stream of income. No need to figure everything out on your own with a Fora subscription. Everything you need to run a travel business lives under one roof. You can finally turn your passion for travel into a fulfilling business with Fora. Become a Fora advisor today at foratravel.com/0to-travel. That's Fora, Fora travel.com/0to-travel. Make sure you tell them we sent you, foratravel.com/0to-travel. Now, back to the show. It sounds like you spent some time in New York cutting your teeth on big productions and learning the art form of production and all that. And I agree. I think like making a move to YouTube, that's the future. Like you said, new media. But, for you could have done a lot of different things. You don't necessarily have to pick projects that take you totally out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, but how else would you grow,
Well, yeah. I mean, is this part of it for you? Is this about designing a business that is just consistently taking you out of your comfort zone? Is that like a personal driver for you?
Yeah, I would say so. I think I recognize that a lot of people are fearful of leaving what they know, leaving the familiar, leaving the comfortable. And the reality of that is, yeah, you can have a comfy life, but when are you really going to learn, grow, be challenged in a way that changes your perspective and hopefully makes you open-minded and maybe more empathetic to the way that other people live. I've always found that one of my life goals, especially when I was younger, was just to see as much of the planet and sort of leave every stone unturned. and um, and to go out there and see for myself what things were really like and have real conversations with people whose lives might be completely different than mine. Um, and with a project like Project Limitless, Mitch's expedition, it's one of the most extreme ways of doing that. And we knew at every step of the way it was going to be obstacles, financial obstacles from a production perspective, logistics, visa issues, safety concerns, and then, of course, the sort of physical aspect of the mission, which was Mitch. Is he going to be strong enough? Is there going to be, what are our chances for injury? What are our chances for delay if he doesn't reach the physical goal each day, and the progress that it takes to reach Everest in time for that weather window? So much at stake. And it was over the course of a year that we worked on this project, and really happy to say that it was a success because Mitch put everything on the line. I mean, he didn't have any financial backing or any social following when we met him. And my partner in crime on this one, Stanley Gaskell, who also worked on Project Africa with the Hardest Geezer, we just met him and knew that there was a spark, there was something special there, and backed him. And yeah, a year later, he had 300,000 followers. He had 30 million views in the last 3 months of the expedition. He now has a book deal and a documentary in the making, and a career launched. But he's also just so genuine and wants to share what it's like being on the road, what sort of wildlife preservation can be had by exploring and working with animals and working with people who care about wildlife. That's his main MO. And very special thing to be a part of.
You just outlined a bunch of the challenges, the logistics and so on, and of course the physical challenge and you guys having to keep up and you being a part of that on the ground. In terms of getting out of your comfort zone and being challenged, let's say morally or ethically, do you have any experiences where you had to face some of those types of challenges?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you share?
So I think the one that stands out in particular from Project Limitless was at one point in the mission, due to rising conflict in Iran, we had to reroute through Iraq, somewhat last minute. And so the whole team was on the ground as we crossed the border into Iraq, the northern border into actually Kurdistan. A lot of fear, trepidation around, what could happen, making sure we were prepared as a team for any scenario. And a couple of factors to consider were, Mitch has a military background. We're carrying some serious kit, drones, and things that aren't always welcome in that part of the world. And I was a female traveler with a group of men. So in that circumstance, you do have to question and respect what local customs are, and that it's not the norm for a woman to be traveling in that situation. And it's actually seen in some rural parts of that world as disrespectful. So there was a bit of concern going into Iraq. I think it was made it was made even more of a vivid experience in my brain because I was raised in Battery Park City in the sort of shadow of 9/11 and the Iraq War. And of course, I remember growing up and hearing, so much on the sort of 24-hour news cycle about that part of the world and the people and justifications for that war at the time, which obviously we now know is pretty shocking reality. And so to get there on the ground and to be, for probably the first time in quite a while for me, nervous about what was to come. We even had preparations for crossing into customs and the customs checks. And happy to say, almost immediately, my worries dissipated. I mean, it was the most rewarding, beautiful trip I've probably ever taken in my life, and one that I really would love to bring my parents, my partner, my closest friends on in the future, to return home, to go back to a place that felt like, oh man, carved a piece of my heart, and met so many wonderful people, ate incredible food, saw beautiful rural landscapes and ancient cities, and the Lalish Temple, and incredible places that aren't spotlit in the way that they should be. And that's the one that stands out the most, just because we were prepared for the worst and walked away going, wow, this might have been the best experience of the, I think it was 18 countries or something that Mitch traveled through in that year.
Concerns are totally understandable there. I mean, you're walking in with all this gear. It could go any way. That's not against any people of any country. That's the government. That's the people that, you know what I mean? Like those things
It's
could...
most countries that you have to be aware of. It's not, but of course it's just the preconception stereotypes that you hear from Western media. And what is really just like unfamiliar territory to a Western audience. I don't know anybody else that's traveled to Iraq apart from, military or maybe some diplomats. And I mean, my family's very open-minded. They love to travel as well. And yet telling them I was going to go, they were concerned. My grandparents were very concerned. And I don't blame them. But I think it was just such a testament to, you have to respect local culture, of course. You have to do your research. You have to prepare in any situation. But I felt more at risk walking down central London at Christmas time due to pickpockets than I'd ever felt being in Iraq. I mean, truly, every person that we encountered was kind, generous, hospitable, to an abundance. There's really a culture of abundance in which you shouldn't finish your plate, because if you do, they're going to pile stuff back on. Incredible sugary teas and the strongest coffee I've ever had. Figs offered everywhere you go. Beautiful textiles, beautiful sounds of the markets, and just a wonderful, colorful, vibrant place. That I should mention, I was only able to travel part of the way down through Iraq. I ended up, because I was balancing other clients, I flew back to London shortly after, and the guys continued back down south through Baghdad. So I would love to go back and visit Baghdad as well. For different reasons, just the impact of what conflict has looked like in that area. But Kurdistan in particular is one of those places that I would just highly recommend to anyone who can be open-minded enough to try it.
Yeah, I mean, big theme sounds like of what you do is, we talked about this before we were recording, this idea of allowing the preconceptions to melt away. And sometimes that happens intentionally. Sometimes that just happens organically. I think when you go to a place, you're just like, I'm just having this experience and it's just completely dissolving my worldview. Everything's shades of gray. I think what the media does to limit society right now is just putting everybody on one side or another. There is these ideas that some travelers may not go to certain places because a certain segment of that population is repressed in a certain way, let's say, to keep it general. What is your, given your experiences on the ground and stuff, what is your view on that? And again, this is shades of gray. So you could say, oh, well, I would go to those places or I won't. Maybe that's too hard on one side or another. But what are your thoughts? It's just like with consumerism, you can vote with your dollars. Like if you don't like what that company does, you don't have to choose to spend money there. If you don't like what a certain country's government is doing, that's not the people. But if you don't like what the certain government's doing, you don't have to come in, even though your dollars might not amount to much in the grand scheme of things. But then there's the other side that might say, well, this is what travel is. It's about exposing yourself and making connections. And that's the thing that can change things, one sort of little block at a time.
Yeah, I think it's a very tricky question to answer um, diplomatically, let's say, and without being too political. I I hear that concern, and there are certain places in the world where it's just not smart to travel to right now, and it's perhaps a little ignorant to travel in this very moment, given what other people are going through. But I think isolationism is a dangerous game. And how are we ever supposed to progress on a global stage as an ever globalizing world without having dialogue, without exposing people to, you know, different ways of life, different belief systems? It's about that, that discourse. That's how we evolve. That's how things change. That's how you inspire. It's how you protect. And I think it's really important to travel not just for pleasure and holiday and fun and lightheartedness, but to travel like to investigate and to be a fly in the wall. This is not about, imposing your belief system. It's about witnessing what other people are going through, broadening your worldview, and hopefully coming at it with just a lot of empathy, a lot of compassion, rather than judgment. And if everyone did that, man, I do think the world would be a better place. Yeah, but I mean, it's very complex. We're talking about a lot of history, a lot of politics, a lot of customs that might not be your own. That doesn't mean, that doesn't mean shy away from the conversation. If anything, I would say it means lean in, right? Because at least in my experience in Iraq, I mean, in Kurdistan, I should say more specifically, because they do sort of self-govern. They want to be a more progressive part of the world. They're we met with the Peshmerga, who are like one of their military forces, whose focus right now is on protecting and conserving local wildlife. And there are tons of women in the forces. I spoke with a general whose one of his main goals is to recruit more women to the force, and he joked that in some cases the men are far more fearful of the women and what they're capable of. And that was a conversation I did not anticipate having. And even better, being able to share that with my family and friends back home. So it's loaded, but that's the general, I think, philosophy.
I always thought that it would be a really good idea and a very small investment to give every world leader a small amount of money and a backpack and make them go around the world for a year on a budget. And let's see what happens when they come back. We can find some people to fill in, I want to see the hostile shenanigans,
Right, right. Yeah, totally. Yeah, like send them to the Hanoi in Vietnam, the downtown backpackers hostel, and
Yes.
get them to a pub crawl. That would
Yes.
be yeah. No, I actually, even better, I always think, if we just had more of like an integrated understanding of young people going out, giving back to communities of their choice, but everybody having a passport. Like, it's wild to me, the stats on the amount of Americans who haven't left the country. I mean, no wonder what's going on. Like, no wonder this lack of self-awareness that the country's experiencing right now. Get out there and see the world, and hopefully in a way that gives back. That and pick a community or pick a cause that resonates with you, because there's so much work to be done. And that to me is more valuable in many cases than, giving up all your money for a college degree or something. The world is changing. I don't know. I'm saying that with 2 degrees, but the world is changing. So,
Well, the struggle's real for a lot of Americans. I mean, a lot of people just don't have money or don't know how to budget travel in that way, or maybe have a situation where they're caretaking for somebody. And I know that's not a possibility for everybody, but there is certainly a segment of the population where getting out, and even, right there south of the US and so many great countries in Central America and people, and it does.
It depends on, of course, the market at a certain time and place, but travel doesn't have to be a crazy expense. I mean, 18 through 23, I traveled every year on a budget through hostels. And what allowed me to do that was working my ass off for, 10 or 11 months of the year.
Serving a lot of Guinnesses?
Well, in some cases, certainly serving a lot of Guinnesses, nannying, volunteering at my school, just all the things that I could possibly think of to make some extra cash and put it aside. But that was because I really saw travel as my priority. So I wasn't really materialistic. I didn't put I guess I didn't put my spendings towards a lot of other things at that time, but it meant that my birthday month, or around August every year, I would get to jet off to a new little place in the world. And whether it was like, training it through Europe for a few weeks, or backpacking Southeast Asia. And I always came back going, I worked really, really hard for that. And now I'm, a few thousand short. But that was so worth it. And feeling myself growing and changing and becoming a different person, and a more mature young adult, and knowing myself more for those experiences.
We'll get back to the interview in just a moment. Are you looking for a smarter way to start your day? Always a good thing, right? Morning Brew Daily breaks down the biggest news in business every morning, fitting seamlessly into your day. Hosts Neil Fryman and Toby Howell cover everything from the latest tech headlines to why nobody can afford a house right now. And their approach actually makes morning news fun. What a great concept. You'll leave each episode of Morning Brew Daily smarter and ready to take on the world around you, whether you're commuting, exercising, getting ready for the day. Maybe you're out there traveling the world somewhere. Either way, Morning Brew Daily makes it easy to make sense of the world of business. You can find out what millions of listeners already know. Business news doesn't have to be boring. Tune into Morning Brew Daily every weekday morning, wherever you get your podcasts. That's Morning Brew Daily, available every weekday morning, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, back to the show. From a storytelling perspective, getting back into YouTube land a little bit, how do you, I don't know, maybe this is a bit of a psychology question as well, if you're quote unquote directing, but the idea is that you're capturing, in Mitch's case, this journey or whatever. But then there's the practicality of, oh, we need this shot. And there's things that can take you out of the moment of what it is, which, when does it cross over from authentic storytelling? And I'm sorry to use the word authentic because I'm not a super fan, but authentic storytelling to inauthentic, meaning you're not really capturing an organic moment. You're actually manufacturing a moment because that's what is necessitated in order to have something to present, which again, you have to do that. That's part of the medium, right? Like you're capturing something, but in this case, it's not like when you're making a film and you have to capture, the scene or whatever, and you can do it many times. And then people understand that, but you're trying to capture something in a holistic, natural way, but you can't always do that the first time. It's just not possible. So, hey, run back here and do that again. You know what I mean? And then you're like, now you're pulling yourself.
Yeah. I think I hear you. I think it depends on the creator. Someone like Mitch is not a whole lot of time for reshoots.
No, I mean, I was using him as an example, but yeah. Like,
Yeah.
how do you balance that? How do you manage that? This is for aspiring YouTubers out there, that
Yes,
want
yeah,
to capture in a certain way.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think a general rule of thumb is your introductions and your transitions and your outros can be scripted, and they're great anchors throughout a story to create beats and moments of transition, but a story is more interesting when you're just rolling and you capture what you capture. What helps thread the needle, I think, is voiceover, graphics, things that, you go out in the world and you shoot a story and you don't know what you're going to get, but at the end of the day, you come home to the office and you kind of go, all right, this is what we got. Now, how do we fill this into a sort of storytelling template? Much like a novel, has a beginning, middle, and end, and an arc, a story arc with the main character and a sort of a lesson or a redemption that's trying to be achieved. We do the same with YouTube. We have to do it because YouTube videos are short. We're mostly working with stories that could be filmed over days, but ultimately end up in a 20-minute clip. And of course, with short form, it's even faster. It's 90 seconds or less, which does take a little bit more curation. But it's about identifying what the overarching narrative is, what are the most important parts and turning points throughout, what are the pinch points, what are the obstacles and the stakes, and putting that all together to tell a great story. I think people get bogged down in the beginning of YouTube creation with, we shot all this content, I want to share all of it. Don't. Don't share all of it, because
That's called a bad vlog. No.
yes, yes. Exactly. Just when it goes on and on and on, and you're 20 minutes in going, what am I watching right now? What is the point of this? YouTube is a beast, and it's something that it does have to be pieced together with thoughtfulness. And also audiences, the attention span is so brutal. So you better hope that within a single scene or clip, they're sticking around there, even if they don't know who you are or what you're up to. If they saw that 2-minute segment, would they still be interested? And if not, if the answer is no, if that clip can't stand isolated on its own, our general rule is just to, what we say, kill your darlings. Cut it. Cut
Is
it
it
away.
the Mr. Beastification of YouTube?
No, it's different.
It's always been like that.
Yeah. I cringe. I hesitate to sort of. I understand the value of that platform and what Beast has done for YouTube, but we're not here to shout. We're not here to saturate, and to have everything at its most extreme form. That to me isn't great storytelling. Great storytelling can lie in the minutiae of things. It can lie in the quieter moments. And I don't think what is important and a great thing to take from Mr. Beast and the more, the most successful creators right now is packaging. I think a lot of people have been talking about it, but we've had our eye on it for quite a few years. When we have an idea for a story and it's coming together and we're doing our research, we're budgeting, and we're in pre-production or development, the main thought is, what is our packaging going to be? What I mean by that is the title and the thumbnail. It's everything, because you're vying for attention. And well, I mean, what do you do when you're in a bookshop? Or, to age myself, back in the day at a Blockbuster, to pick out your story.
Come on, you weren't around for Blockbuster, Molly.
I was around. I just turned 30. I turned 30.
That's probably because you lived in New York City. That sounds impossible.
No, it's true. It's true. And it was like, judging a book by its cover. Like, you're going to pick the thing that stands out to you first. And that's just evolved to be YouTube clips now. You click the image that stands out. And also, just for anyone who's hoping to make YouTube videos and in that creative process, the good rule of thumb, which I think I got this from Patty Galloway, who's a really fantastic YouTube consultant. If I'm getting this right, it's the title, that's the what are you doing? The thumbnail is the how are you doing it, sort of to show you in action. And then the hook, first roughly 30 seconds of your video, is your why. So when people click, they need to understand what's motivating you. What is that arc? that's going to come full circle. And quickly, hopefully, foreshadow what's to come so that audiences know they didn't just get scammed. You're delivering on what they clicked on. And then throughout the story, it's just about, as I say, threading stakes, obstacles, and keeping retention rate in mind. And that's a short snippet of what our strategy is at Blue Door as well. Luckily, we also just get to film with incredible camera ops and editors who, in most cases, do have that TV background, and so are coming at this new landscape with all the tools on their tool belt, all the experience in the world. So yeah, I like to think we're a pretty compelling team to work with in this environment, in this market.
No, that's great advice. I think just from the top level where you started, and the idea that you can capture the moments organically and then tie it together later in production when you're sort of shaping the narrative, let's say, or using some of the tools that you mentioned, titles and voiceover and things like that. I think it's an interesting idea because it could be freeing. It can free you up on the ground to just be more open with what you're capturing. I understand not every video is like that, but I mean, when people hear you describing, you get the TV background and all the people involved and budgets and all, like, I guess somebody like Mitch, he gets a sponsor to pay for all that stuff, right? Like, can just a normal person have a successful YouTube station anymore? Or do you need like a TV size budget to actually?
No. And like I said, Mitch came to Blue Door with this dream, but had been told no quite a lot. This is a very different type of project, though, because of course an expedition, especially summiting a mountain like Everest, it requires cash. So part of what Blue Door did at the start, first 3 months, was I went to bat fundraising through private investment, through sponsorship. And that was a tough ask because he didn't have a following, didn't have much proof to show he was capable of it. It was very risky, but it was something that I was just in a good position to take that kind of big risk, big reward project. And it's not necessarily what I would recommend to people starting out.
Yeah. But everybody's starting from zero,
Yeah, I would say starting at zero is easier because you shouldn't have expectations about what's to come. You can buy secondhand cameras, but you don't even have to go that far. Pick up your phone and start recording on your phone and start experimenting with storytelling and just upload it. I think consistency is so key. And people probably overthink the process, or it's not good enough. It's not, it is good enough. Just start, and you'll learn on the go. But I think the important thing is just to do it. Don't overthink it. If you feel like you have a story to tell or you have something to share, put it up there. What's the worst that can happen? You shouldn't be considering necessarily the numbers of the impact that early on. You should just be enjoying the process and having fun. And I think that maybe an issue that people have is they go out thinking, oh, I want to be the next Mr. Beast. If you're saying that, you're not doing it for the right reasons. You should be doing it for the love of storytelling and the love of filmmaking.
Amen. Preach on, Molly. No, that's good. Yeah. I think that's great advice. Seriously, though, I mean, if you're not enjoying the process, it's going to be a long slog. I see podcasts come and go all the time. They launch, they make a bunch of, then they realize this is a lot of work. Yeah, because you have to love it. You have to love it enough to keep going, and then you build a skill set over time as well. So I love that. I mean, I love that. I find that to be an empowering message to you just put it out there, and what's the worst that can happen. Yeah, some people might make comments, but there's lessons in learning to kind of take criticism, and I mean, there's lessons in all of it, right?
Yeah, it's hard it's hard to put yourself in a situation that feels vulnerable and to fail perhaps publicly by whatever your definitions of failure can be. But to me, if you're just creating because you love it, then you're not failing, you're just sharing. that's the world we live in now. Hyper sharing, hyper communicative. And hopefully other people, your story and your personality, your brand, whatever it is, it resonates with other people because it's real.
Yeah. Love it. Great advice. Before we let you go, I have a couple fun travel/destination type questions because you've been to a lot of places. You've been to a lot of off the beaten track places. And this is one I've asked just one or two other guests. So I think this will be fun because you've had a lot of different experiences on the ground all over the world. I mean, you just talked about some of them sound incredible. You have a magical, let's say, portal in your house, whatever. It's something you can carry around. You can throw it down and it makes this thing and you get in it and it can take you wherever you want instantaneously. It's like a teleportation device, right? And you have one day with it and you can use it however you want. Like you can throw it down, you can get in it, you can say, take me to Ireland, to Galway, to this place, and I'm going to have an Irish breakfast. And now I'm going to go here and then I'm going to go do this. And then I want to go to Finland and go to a sauna. You know what I mean? So you get to curate your perfect day and you're not limited geographically or by travel times or anything like that. Leaning on some of the experiences you've had around the world, tell us about your perfect teleportation day.
Man.
No fair, because I didn't give you any time to prep for this, but the reason is I didn't know I was going to ask it, first of all. This is a spontaneous conversation, but also you could just go with your gut here. Like there's no wrong, you might think afterwards, I should have done this instead of. I love this because I always take these questions seriously too, and I can tell you are, even though this will never happen.
God. Well, it's tricky because first of all, whenever the question comes up of like if you had a magic power, yes, teleportation would be it. My life would be so much easier. It's funny that you're asking me this as I'm in Galway, which is like my happy place in the world. Because if I was anywhere else, I would probably say I want to start my day here.
Amazing. You're where you want to start your day.
I am where I want to start my day. Yeah. There's my grandparents live in Barna, a little bit outside of town, and in an area where you sort of walk out the door and you can walk, as we say, up the bog road. And there's a sort of hilltop about 30 minutes down the road that I've walked to since I was a kid. And it's one of those places where I get to the top and it's peaceful and it's windy and I can see Galway Bay in the distance and I can smell burning turf and it just makes me feel at peace. It's like my religion as an agnostic person. It's like, gosh, this energy, this fuel that I'm receiving from the earth and from this environment that, and I've been doing that since I was like 8 years old. So that's quite special. My grandmother calls it Molly's Mountain. So that's probably what I'm going to do at some point today if I can get away from the laptop for a little bit.
So you get to actually do the first thing you would do on this magical day. You actually get to do that today. That's a first.
It's fantastic.
That's amazing.
Fantastic. I would say a few places that I've just loved to, one standout spot. The Nevis bungee jump in Queenstown, New Zealand.
Okay. So what are you doing that before lunch or?
I'm doing that before lunch.
Yeah, you should probably do it before lunch.
Yeah. But wow, what a rush. Exhilarating. I've done a few bungees and skydives and fun things like that in my day. And that was like the ultimate. It was so, so fun. So I highly recommend that if anyone's going all the way over there. I love a little cafe in Paris that I tend to try and stop by if I'm in the area, if I'm shooting in France and going through Paris. It's in Saint-Germain, it's in the Latin Quarter, and it's absolutely beautiful. And I just sit there with a little glass of wine and watch the people go by. I'd probably teleport there for a moment in time. I wish I knew the name now. I feel bad. I can't think of it.
Okay. Well, you know where it is, so you're there.
I know where it is, and my friend lives around the corner, and so I just sort of drop my bags and walk around the corner and have a seat. And I've only been going there for about 3 years now, but it's just become a little bit of a bit of a rhythm that I get into when I land or when I take the train over, which happens at least a couple times a year. It's quite nice. I would probably also aim to be in the Cotswolds at some point, perhaps for dinner, ideally Sunday roast at the Bell in Charlbury, um, and to go for a walk in that area. Again, just nature and and oh gosh, I'm trying to think of somewhere a bit more interesting because I feel I'm defaulting to just all the places that I feel are
No, it's
homey to
okay.
me.
It's what you feel. Take us home. Where are you spending your evening and your night?
Well, so I think it's that's two answers there
Okay.
because I probably would aim for London for dinner.
Hmm, okay. Where you live? So another vote for
Home. I'm
yeah,
on this theme of home,
yeah. That's good.
and I think one of the cruel tricks of having a life that's so full of travel is you do end up picking up little places that you call home as you go and finding that, obviously home is where the heart is and that little cafe in Paris seems to be a new growing home for me, but it's like that idea that, okay, I never lived there and I haven't maybe spent a lot of time there, but I feel myself when I'm in that moment. And so, yeah, I would probably have to end up in Notting Hill for dinner at Osteria Basilico, just off Portobello Road. That's our local Italian. And I love the guys there. There's homemade pasta and they're so kind. And every time I see them, they give me a big hug, and that just feels like, wow, welcome back. It's such a lovely feeling. And right after that, and to round out the conversation, I'm jetting over to Swift in New York for a pint of Guinness, potentially an Irish coffee.
Back home
Um,
again.
and
I love
and
it.
I have a little corner spot in that pub by the window between the bar and the window where I can look out at the world and I can look down the bar and see all the beautiful faces coming in and out and the bartenders working it. And man, if I can get the spot these days, it's busy enough. But yeah, those are my areas that I visit in my mind, miss all the time. And as I say, I could be home with my parents in New York or home with my grandparents in Varna, home with my partner in London, and and like missing that other part, but it's also what drives me because I love making the world feel like a small place. I love moments when friends from different walks of life connect. Big networker. That's also part of Blue Door's ethos is like we throw industry events and stuff that bring people together. And I love that idea that we do live in a globalizing world. It's inevitable. Let's let's take advantage of it. Let's make it feel like you can hop over here and there and working all the while. It's very important to work. It's very important to be very busy. And I hope that wherever I go, I try and leave a bit of an impact so that I can return in a very productive way and have an excuse to come back. That's how I usually put it is like, if I'm flying home to New York, it's likely because I've got a shoot there, I've got a client who's working there, I have a reason and a purpose for being there. And as all that's going on, I'm going to pop over to Swift for an hour,
Nice. No, it's interesting. I mean, super well traveled. And then when it comes to a question like this, inevitably travelers will tend to select places where they feel grounded. And maybe there's a little bit of a sense of community, even if it's just for a day or it's part of being human. I guess we need that. By the way, I'm not sure if you're still playing music, but if you ever release an album, please, you got to title it Up the Bog Road. What a great name
Up
for
the
an Irish fiddle album, right?
Oh, so true.
Up
I
the Bog
wouldn't
Road. I mean,
dare.
that is an Irish fiddle album. Please, if I
Oh
ever heard
man,
one.
I wouldn't dare try and release an album. But I maybe in another life. But you know what? It is a good call for an album. Yeah. I've written quite a lot about it.
I don't care if it's like 10 years from now. Just send me and be like, here it is, Up the Bog Road.
Up
Give
the
it a
bog
listen.
road. Yeah. Yeah.
No, you mentioned place to feel like home, and Eric Weiner, he's an author. He's a guy I've had on the podcast who I know, and he calls it your soul place. He has these soul places around the world, and that term resonates with me. Are there any other places like that you've
I
been that
love
feel
that.
like?
Soul places. I'm drawn to speaking about experiences over dinner tables, like over food. because that is the environment I was raised in, and deep appreciation for hospitality and cooking and good beverages. And I think of, and the street market in Hanoi, Vietnam. I think of this little tapas spot that I went to with the Red Bull company, actually, in Madrid. I think of a fantastic Nivunki village in Lapland, Finland, where the kitchen had closed, but the chef came out and was smoking a cigarette outside of the beautiful new hotel and started, chatting with me, and opened up his kitchen again and made a meal of just like really authentic Finnish food. Yeah, just moments like that are around, I guess, shared plates.
Love it.
That's what I think of.
If you want to check out Molly's work, bluedoorproductions.co, we'll link up to it all in the show notes. And we mentioned Mitch's YouTube station if you want to watch some of the videos there. We'll link up to whatever you send over. And before we let you go, do you want to leave some final words of wisdom here on travel, or a quote you're living by, or just anything? I'll give you a shot to wrap it up here if you'd like.
Yeah. I mean, I think, gosh, all in a succinct statement is tough.
I know. No pressure, just,
I've created a company that operates where the margin of error is like pretty razor thin, and we operate in some of the most remote places around the world. I mean, I've mentioned a few of them, the top of Mount Everest, and the Arctic Circle, and the Congolese jungle and the Arabian desert. I mean, these are extreme environments where we're trying to, push boundaries and define what like new age agile filmmaking can look like. And that is on a budget, and that is small teams being versatile to where the story takes us. And I think what comes with that is just a lot of trust between our team, trust with our clients and our collaborators, that we're not there to punch down, and we're there to tell a real story, as long as the person that meets us is coming at it with an open mind as well. And as it comes to travel is an invaluable thing to me, and to everyone. I would encourage, just get out there and try. And if you don't try, you'll never know. And to be quite cheesy and use a line from Yes Theory, who were OG YouTubers that really did inspire me to get into this field: seek discomfort. Find what makes you uncomfortable and dig into it. Because otherwise, how are you going to learn? How are you going to grow? And you can always go back home. You can always return to what you know, and to a state of being that feels comfortable. But hopefully you'd return with a new mindset and with, new perspective. And as I've said a few times in this hour, just empathy is so important in that process, and what I hope people take with them, because I fear hyper-social world, 24-hour news cycle, I fear we lose empathy in that process with the sort of oversaturation that we're being thrown every day. But it's so important.
Thanks, Molly. It was great chatting with you.
Thank you for taking the time. It's been a really lovely conversation, and nice to sort of walk a bit down memory lane for me and take a minute to think about all the travel.
Awesome. Let's do it in person next time.
Yeah. Maybe in Swift over a pint.
Sounds great. Take care.
Okay. Speak soon. Bye-bye.
There you have it. Thank you so much to Molly McDonald for stopping by the show. bluedoorproductions.co is where you can learn more about her work. I'm going to leave you with an Irish proverb that I think sums this one up pretty nicely, at least some of the things we talked about, one of which was just getting out there and doing it, as she mentioned at the end, encouraging people to get out and travel, but also Whether you want to put yourself out there in terms of content creation or starting a business or writing a book or anything like that, just kind of going for it, that mentality. And this Irish proverb, I think, sums up the spirit of that mentality, of that mindset. Quickly, this podcast is a part of the Airwave Media Podcast Network now. Yes, proud to be part of it. And you can visit airwavemedia.com to listen and subscribe to some of the other awesome shows that they have there. Now, I'll leave you with this Irish proverb. You'll never plow a field by turning it over in your mind. Love that. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. Peace and love to you and yours. Cheers.
This podcast has been brought to you by ZeroToTravel.com. Ideas and advice to make your travel dreams a reality.